Gemara that we were learning, we spoke about the different items that are questionable if they're really food, what bracha to recite on them, how edible are they. So we mentioned kimcha dechiti, if a person's eating flour, and we mentioned that there was a machlokes, an argument. What bracha would someone say on this flour, wheat flour? Rabbi Yehuda said bar pri adama. Rabbi Nachman said shahak oil. These are different blessings based on the fact that would you still consider it a fruit after it has changed from its original appearance, its normal appearance. And Rava wanted to tell Rav Nachman that he's wrong. And he said, you shouldn't really argue on Rabbi Yehuda because the great rabbis, they gave their verdict regarding olive oil. And they said olive oil is ha'etz, which means that it's still considered a fruit, even though it changed from its original appearance. The Gemara said that it's not really a good comparison. Not a good comparison because olive oil, it has changed, true, but it has reached its final improved state. So, therefore, you would recite a bracha on the olive oil ha'etz, because you would consider it the fruit. This is its state of, its improved state, and even though it changed, like this is sort of what it's meant for. This is like what you want olives for, to reach olive oil. And when it comes to flour, you don't really want it to reach this stage. You want the grain to grow. And then if you're going to grind it into flour, you want it to turn into bread. That's really what the improved state of this would be. And so it changed, but it didn't reach its final improved state. And therefore, it's not considered the blessing of, you would not say ho'adama, you would say shahakol, at least according to Rav Nachman's view. And you can't prove that Rabbi Yochanan and Shmuel would argue on that. Could be they would agree with that because they talk about a case of olive oil, and olive oil is very different than flour. Both of them changed from their original state, but they are not, you can't compare the two with regard to have they reached their ultimate state of improvement. Yes, Susan.
So what is the final blessing? The olive oil and wheat is the same blessing?
So again, olive oil, we said if you eat it as a medicine and you mix it into some other food in order to drink it, not eat it, drink it as a medicine. So the blessing would be ha'etz on olive oil.
Okay.
But when it comes to flour, I don't know anyone that does eat flour, this wheat flour. There are different opinions what exactly type of flour we're talking about. But if you were to eat this type of flour, it is an argument between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Nachman. What the bracha would be, it would either be ha'adama or shahako. Those are the two opinions about eating flour, straight flour. Again, this is not
okay. So it's practical. Not using it in cooking. In other words, I use flour to coat food.
We're not talking about that. Yeah, we're talking about eating flour.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not something so practical.
No.
Now the Gemara continues and brings another case of a person who ate. A person wants to eat either raw pumpkin or flour, that's barley flour. So that was another example that the Gemara gave. And the bracha there was shahakol niyabidvarot, shahakol, the general blessing, and which makes sense. It has these are not the normal way you're eating a pumpkin that that's not really edible raw. It's really supposed to be cooked because you're not eating it in the norm. This is not the normal type of type of food. You would recite that you wouldn't call this the fruit of the land. This is not called the fruit of the earth because it's not in its state of edible. It's edible. It's normal edible state. In other words, it might be edible, but it's not. This is not a normal eating, and you wouldn't say that this is the fruit of the ground. Therefore, you would recite a shahakol. The same thing would apply to barley flour. It's not the norm. You're eating something now. This barley flour is also the fact that it has changed, but it is also something that's very unedible. Like the Gemara considers it worse than even wheat flour. Barley flour is even worse than wheat flour. So the Gemara says this implies that wheat flour maybe is better because it only says barley flour. You say shahakol. That would imply that wheat flour would be Vayrei pri ha'adama. You would say the specific blessing as if this is the fruit from the earth. And that's what it implies. And the Gemara answers, no, we don't mean to imply that. We're mentioning barley flour only because barley flour, you might think that you don't recite a bracha at all on. And as the Gemara continues, and it says, and it would even be worse than salt. Salt, you recite a shahakol on, but barley flour, you might think you don't even recite any bracha. And the Gemara says, barley flour, it causes parasites and could cause, and therefore you might think you don't recite a bracha at all. And therefore Shmuel comes and lets us hear that since you do benefit, you do enjoy eating it, you would need to recite a bracha on it, not the regular bracha. You would recite the bracha shahakol. But that doesn't tell us that wheat flour would be ha'adama. Wheat flour also might be shahakol. The only thing is that barley flour, you might think you don't recite any bracha, and Shmuel comes and tells us that you do recite a bracha, that it's not exempt, and the reason is because you are getting some enjoyment. And we mentioned how this is different than olive oil. Drinking olive oil, you don't recite any bracha because it really damages, at least according to most opinions, you don't recite any bracha because it's damaging to your health. While this type of food, this barley flour, which could cause parasites, it's not immediate danger to your health. It's not immediately affecting you negatively, and therefore, you would recite a bracha on the barley flour, even though it's also not healthy. It has an element in it that causes some damage, but it's not altogether dangerous to your health. It causes, sort of like a side issue that a person would have parasites in their stomach. Then the Gemara spoke about kaira. In kaira, we said the common translation here that the commentaries say is we're dealing with the shoots of a palm tree, and a person is these are shoots that they're going to turn into branches, but they start off as soft, and a year later they turn hard. And the Gemara wants to know what bracha would be recited. I didn't mention that the same word kaira, other places there are commentaries that explain in other places that it refers to hearts of palm, this word. But in this Gemara, it seems like they're translating it as specifically the shoots of the palm, not the hearts of palm. Yes, Ben.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. What's the final about the bracha and if you drink shemen zayit alone?
So I mentioned to you that the common view of the Rishonim, the commentaries of the Talmud, is that there is no bracha at all. The Gemara was vague. The Gemara said, you recite a bracha on olive oil, you recite a ha'etz on olive, it's going to damage you. Zuke mazik. But the Gemara doesn't say, therefore, don't say any bracha, or it doesn't say, therefore, say shahakol. It doesn't really clarify. So the common understanding is there's no bracha at all. But Maimonides does say that you have to recite a shahakol on olive oil.
Thank you.
So the commentaries say that our Gemara that talks about barley flour might be the source of the Rambam. That barley flour, you recite a shahakol, even though it is damaging to your health. So it could be that olive oil, maybe the Rambam is learning, is the same thing as the barley flour. But I did mention that there is reason to differentiate between the two, and that's why the common understanding of the commentaries is that there's a difference. Olive oil, you don't say any bracha, and barley flour, you do recite a bracha.
Thank you.
Now, this is all what we must say is that olive oil does have some flavor to it. And a person does enjoy that flavor as it goes down their palate. Because if there was no flavor, if olive oil was something that was disgusting, then there would be no reason to recite a bracha. So we're obviously saying that the palate does enjoy some flavor. But at the same time, olive oil is so damaging that you would not recite a bracha, according to most opinions. Yes, Robert.
I would just going back to our previous discussion. Olive oil through modern technology is now regarded as a healthy oil because of not having polyunsaturates. And so, we use it in cooking and we use it in the dressing with balsamic vinegar and other forms. But so how do we deal with that as modern people and then relating to what it says in this text here? That to me is a dilemma.
Right. So this is a good question. With regard to salad dressings, it's not a problem because we're not going to be reciting a bracha on it. Obviously, the main part of the salad is going to be, you're going to recite the bracha on the vegetables, and the olive oil is going to be considered a secondary food that's mixed with it. So it's not so practical, but the question would have practicality when it comes to someone who's, let's say, drinking straight olive oil because that's what their diet is calling for, and science is claiming maybe that it's healthy nowadays. That to our bodies, if science claims that it's healthy, maybe there should be a bracha on it, and possibly the bracha would be ha'etz, because if you're going to tell me that it's not unhealthy, then and you're drinking it, and olive oil is considered a improved version of olives, and there might be reason to say a bracha, a bracha ha'etz. Now, the question is, are you drinking it for medicinal purposes, or are you drinking it as, now that it's healthy, why not? Let's have a little drink of olive oil. Let me go get, instead of orange juice, I'm going to have some olive oil. So are you drinking it as a form of medicine, or as a drink? If you're really drinking it as a medicinal food, so and I think I would say, and not just how you're drinking it, if people were to drink it more as a medicine. So like nowadays, let's say science is claiming that it's healthy. It's still not drank as a drink. People don't go around drinking olive oil. You don't go to someone's house and they say, "Oh, I just have some, just bought some olive oil in Publix. Let me give you a cup." It's still not drank as a drink.
Just yesterday, we sat down and did 2 leftover Hanukkah glasses. So, the menorahs.
Who'd you invite? Who'd you invite?
You have
over?
a shot. You have a good shot there.
Yeah, I didn't get the phone call, Isaac. I thought you'd invite me. So anyway, so it's not, it's drank, I guess, maybe as a medicine, not as a actual food. So in that case,
it's an additive. It's not the main partaking that is the issue. So you can use it as an additive with other ingredients, is pretty much what we're saying.
Right. Now, if it's used as an additive to other ingredients and the main thing is the other ingredients, then there's no question. If the main thing is the olive oil, then, and you're eating it with other ingredients. So our Gemara said that, that if your purpose is the olive oil, you would recite a ha'etz. You would recite a ha'etz on it because that's the purpose, and you're drinking it for the olive oil. So it would be ha'etz. I'm just trying to think. So if that would be the case, if you were drinking olive oil because it's healthy, so even though in the Gemara, in the opinions in the Gemara, it would seem like the most you would say on olive oil would be a shahakol, according to the Rambam. Everyone else would say you don't say any bracha. But now that, let's say we consider it healthy, or you're somewhat healthy, let's say, if that's so, again, I didn't do my research, so I don't know for sure. I do know some diets tell you to have it, but I don't know if that's the common view of doctors. But let's say it would be. Let's say this would be the common view of doctors. Maybe you would recite a ha'etz, actually. I'm just thinking, maybe I just like, if you're drinking it for medicinal purposes and you are enjoying the flavor of the olive oil, so it would have the ha'etz bracha, maybe. Yeah, that's what it might, it would seem. Again, you would have to find out if this is the common view that it's not unhealthy, to drink straight olive oil. Yes, Ben.
It could not be unhealthy these days because the sardines and the tuna, they all come in olive oil, swimming in olive oil, and when you eat it, you eat the olive oil too. And
now, just
and
because
there's a heart surgeon, a very important heart surgeon in California, that says that you have to have some olive oil every day to keep your gut healthy. That's what he's saying. Like a medicine, actually. So it's an additive. It's an additive, but I pour it a little bit on my bread if I'm eating bread. Even if I put avocado on it, I still pour a little olive oil on it.
Right. So the point is that it might be healthy in small amounts. Right. But if you're drinking a cup of it,
no.
I don't know. I don't know if all doctors agree with that. You know what I mean? And that would also mean like the after blessing. If this is something dangerous, so I don't know that you could recite an after blessing at all on it, or if it's questionably dangerous, so the after blessing would be another issue to deal with, because, you're drinking, again, to have a little olive oil, as Ben is saying, that's everyone, no one questions that. You have it with your sardines, you have it with your salad, you have it with in your bread. There's no question that it has health, that it could be healthy. It probably is healthy. What?
Rabbi?
Yeah.
But if you're taking it as medicine, I thought we don't say brachas over medicine.
So it depends if it has a flavor. So what the Gemara is understanding is that olive oil does have some type of flavor to it that people might like. So because it's flavored and people like it, people, might like that you enjoy that flavor, so you can recite a bracha. The Gemara said you would recite a bracha even though you're mixing it with something called anigroin, which was like this beet soup, but you would recite the bracha on the olive oil. That's what our Gemara said. There is a difference of opinion if we're dealing with, is it majority olive oil, or is it even if it's a small amount of olive oil, would you recite the bracha on the olive oil? In other words, do we look at the fact that there's a majority of other liquid there, or do we look at the fact that your main purpose is the olive oil? But so that's something that the commentaries deal with in that previous Gemara. Like, was it specifically because the olive oil is the majority that you're reciting the bracha, or is it or is it not because of that, and you would still recite a bracha on the olive oil,
even if it's not a kazayas?
Yeah, you recite a bracha on something that's on any crumb you would recite a bracha. So it's not about the kazayas. It's more of a question of what would the correct bracha be on that drink that's majority anigroin, beet soup, and the minority of it, the small amount would be, if that would be the case, if it's a small amount of olive oil. Let me just pull it up over here. 1 second. So the Gemara gave a case where you put a lot of olive oil in. And the reason why the Gemara brought that case could be because it's emphasizing that even though you're drinking so much olive oil and it looks like it's clearly for healing purposes, you're still allowed to do that on Shabbos by mixing it into the anigrin. So it's telling you that even if you have a lot, but that doesn't mean that if you had a small amount that you wouldn't recite the bracha on the olive oil. It could be that even if it's a small amount, you would recite the bracha on the olive oil. The reason why the Gemara gave a case where you put a lot could be because it's emphasizing that even when you have a lot, it would be permissible on Shabbos. And even though it might look more like you're doing it for healing, but since you're mixing it in the anigrin, it's allowed on Shabbos. Again, we was talking earlier about the laws of taking medicine on Shabbos, which normally is prohibited unless there's a great necessity. And here your throat is a little sore, so it wasn't considered necessity that would allow you to gargle olive oil. But we did allow it in the anigrin. So again, there's a difference of opinion if we're dealing with the majority or it's not a majority, but would the bracha be ha'etz because of the olive oil? Okay, so in any event, getting back to Robert's question, it's something to look into. This is something that, again, we're adapting the laws of the Talmud and trying to apply it to today. In today's, how do you apply it? If science today says that it's healthy, so then that would change the obligation of reciting a bracha on it. And it doesn't mean that the rabbis were wrong. It just means that our nature has changed. We live in a very polluted world. People's nature changed. Certain things that might have been dangerous, might have happened in previous generations, are not necessarily the same today. And therefore, the Gemara is correct, but we need to apply it to the side, to the health situation of today. And for our bodies, there might be a change. Again, you'd have to do the research and find out if and who knows, maybe people are going to start drinking it. People drink aloe juice now. They drink all different types of stuff that are maybe I don't know if they would drink it in previous generations. Okay, so So continuing with the Gemara, so we mentioned that barley flour is considered, unhealthy. Then we spoke about the kaira. Again, we're talking about the shoots of the palm, of the palm tree. And the question is, do you recite a bracha of ho'adama or shahakal? Now, the point is this: trees often have more than one item that's edible. There's the fruit that comes from the tree, like a palm tree. Excuse me. Thank you. The fruit of the palm tree is the dates. Thank you. The dates of the dates. But there's also edible part of the palm tree, which is the shoots. Until they get hard, at least they're edible. So the fruit of the tree is obviously called pri ha'etz, and that's why you would recite a bracha, boirei pri ha'etz, because you're eating and enjoying the fruit of the tree, which we like dates. You're enjoying them. You're going to eat. You're going to say that's the fruit of the tree. You're thanking Hashem for creating the fruit of the tree. However, the palm shoots, would you call that the fruit of the tree? Not exactly. That's not the fruit of the tree. That's part of the tree. It's not the fruit of the tree. So therefore, you would call it possibly the fruit of the ground. This is fruit. This is a item that's growing. It's a produce from the ground. So it's a product of the ground. So you might be able to recite on it a Boirei Pri Ha'adama. And that would be Rav Yehuda's view, Boirei Pri Ha'adama. Shmuel says no. Shmuel says you would recite a Shahakol Niya Bidvaroi. You would just recite the generic bracha, the bracha that's very inclusive, and that is the bracha Shahakol, that everything was created from Hashem's word. Yes, yeah.
The shoots actually come out of the root, not of the ground. Later, it creates its own roots. But when it's starting out, when it's soft and edible, it's actually off the root.
Okay. So in other words, the kaira is, you can only get it when the tree is beginning to grow. You can't get it later.
No, even when the tree is mature, but when the root has extra energy, I guess, or something, it puts out shoots. And then the shoot creates its own roots. But
and it puts out these shoots. Where do they come out from? From the top of the tree or the bottom?
No, on the bottom, from the root.
Right.
Okay. And anyone familiar with? Are you familiar with specifically a date tree, a palm tree that you've seen this?
I know my fig tree does it.
Right. It creates its own. That's right.
So the shoots come out of the bottom, and they're soft in the beginning, and then they get hard.
Right. As they grow, they mature, they get hard.
Okay,
After
great.
6 or 8 or 10 inches, they get harder. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so thank you for explaining to us urban people who don't know anything about trees.
Well, I grow it in the house, so I see it. I can see the shoots.
Right. Okay. So we're talking about this the shoots from the palm tree, and so what bracha do you say, Ben, on those shoots from the fig tree?
I don't eat them. I let them grow. I want them to grow.
Maybe they're good. Did you?
Maybe I
never tried it. Okay. Well, we got to first figure out the bracha. So the shoots from the palm tree is Rabbi Yehuda says Bar Pri Ha'adama. Shmuel says that it should be shahakol. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says the reason is because you could call it a product of the ground. It's a peirahu. It's considered some type of a fruit. It's like it is considered a fruit. Shmuel says it's going to end up being hard. If it's going to end up being hard, you don't call this produce. This is This is really part of a tree. It's hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to get hard in the end, and you can't really call it the pera, the fruit, even if you're going to call it the fruit of the ground. Not exactly would it be called fruit of the ground because it is going to get hard. So this is what Shmuel says. It should be, we'll say a bracha. Now it's soft. You can say a bracha, but you can't call it pera, fruit. You can't call it fruit of the ground. For sure not fruit of the tree, but even not fruit of the ground. And therefore, you would say the generic bracha shahakol, that everything is created by Hashem's word. Now, the Gemara continues and says something very interesting, that Shmuel told Rav Yehuda, who was his student, he said, Shinana, sharp one, it sounds, what you're saying sounds right. Kavosach mistabra. It sounds like what you're saying might be right because he says the hatznain, because tznain, which is radishes, in the end it gets hard, and you recite a bar priyadama. And then the Gemara answered that it's not a good comparison. That really tznain, radishes, they do get hard if you leave them too long. But nevertheless, people plan on eating the radishes when they're soft, when they're young. And therefore, it's called a fruit, even though in the end it's going to get hard. But this is what people plant it for. And because they planted for this, you would call this the product of the ground. This is radishes, our produce. It's a product of the ground. It's a vegetable because that's what people, even though it's going to get hard, you won't call it a tree. You would call it, or some type of a, bark or whatever. It gets hard. You would call it a fruit. And however, dikla, the palm, the shoots that come from the palm, they don't plant for the shoots. They plant it for the fruits. And therefore, if it gets hard, you're not going to call this the product because that's not what people have in mind when they plant it. And therefore, you would recite the bracha shahakol, like Shmuel says. So again, Shmuel wanted to compliment Rav Yehuda and say, it sounds maybe like what you're saying, but the Gemara says, no, it's not a good comparison. So in the end, Shmuel's opinion stays. Shmuel's opinion that it's shahakol stays, and the Gemara soon will say that we follow his halacha. The halacha follows his view. Now we're up to the next case, and this is a case of capers. Are anyone here familiar with capers? Caper trees? Oh, good. Rabbi. Okay. Yes, Moshe.
Okay, let me ask you something. There's a few things with a palm tree, for example. You have that part that you were talking about that softens and then becomes hard. And then you have the coconut itself, which is a form of food. And then within the food of the coconut, you have a liquid. So you have shakolis, you have shakol, you say, and then you have ha'etz, and then you have adama, So it seems like you have three berachot within one tree, because the liquid of the coconut you drink, that's what I was thinking about that, and I just want to pass it by you to see what you thought about that.
So honestly, I have to be honest, I don't really drink coconut water, or haven't drank in a long time.
That's not the point, but I'm just saying
I believe the bracha, if you drink the coconut water directly from the coconut, the bracha would be ha'etz. If you pour it out, recite. I'm just reading this from a website. You would say shahakol. Let me see if everyone agrees with that. Coconut milk shahakol. Now, maybe people don't agree with that. I don't know. Let's see. I do have a bracha guidebook, but okay, let's see here.
What do you say on this?
I'm just pulling it up on my phone internet here. Coconut milk.
Eight for the fruit, and milk is shahako.
Shahako. They claim shahako. What are you reading from, Isaac?
I bless food.
Oh.
My phone bracha guide.
So the coconut milk. Now, when you drink it from the coconut, is that called coconut milk or coconut water?
Coconut milk.
So how do they get what's the water? Coconut water.
They take pretty much the same. And they mix it in. Yeah, they mix it in with that and make coconut water out of it as an ingredient.
Oh, it's not a mixture of milk and water together, and they don't divide it. No,
it's just the way they label it. That's all.
Water, maybe.
So coconut water, you're just adding some water to the milk and calling it coconut water.
Probably.
What do you want to say, Susan? Susan?
What it is when they call it coconut milk, they've taken the pulp and ground it so fine that it turns into like a milk, and there's a residue in the bottom. Also, when you buy a can of coconut milk,
right. So would coconut milk be pressed coconut into milk, or would that be the liquid that you find inside when it's?
The coconut water is what you find inside the coconut. I don't know what you're talking about, pressed. I don't really know. But Mike, I have a question after you're finished with the coconut.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I'm going to look up I have another book, but that's
according to the Healthline website, coconut water comes right from the coconut. Yes. Coconut water is the liquid found in the center of a young green coconut.
Okay. And then what's the milk?
It's pressed. It's pressed.
Probably pressed. Right. Okay. That makes sense. Because just like almond milk, they have to press it.
Yeah.
And soy milk and all, right. So they probably press it to make the milk. So so the milk would make much more sense to be shahako. The blessing on it would be shahako. The water. I saw that website that said that you would recite if you drink it from the coconut, you would recite ha'etz. I have to look into that.
Wow, the Cleveland Clinic says coconut water, which is the clear fluid found inside, differs from coconut milk, which combines coconut water with grated coconut. So they must
just grated,
scrape it around.
This is
right. Right. Oh, so in that case, it's not pressed. You're saying there's pieces. Coconut milk has like pieces of coconut. That's interesting that we're saying it's shahako. I'm gonna have to look into that.
When you go to the store, when you go to the market, you can buy coconut milk or coconut water.
Coconut milk, right there.
Yeah, I see. We have some people here with some coconut milk.
You can buy coconuts. You can buy coconuts by themselves, which is just the food within the shell. Right. You can buy water, you can buy the milk, and you can buy the coconut.
Yeah.
I have ingredients here, and it says shredded unsweetened coconut. That constitutes part of what the ingredients are for coconut milk, along with the water.
Right.
On Lieber's can of coconut milk, it says made from pressing a fresh, ripe, organic coconut meat.
So when you open it, I'd like to know if there are pieces in it or it's pretty much just a liquid. But you don't have to open it now. Anyway, okay, Susan, you had a question. Susan.
Yes, the trying to figure out the prayer when you have. I'll take fresh garlic, crush it with olive oil. That's a vegetable. That's an oil. I take my challah, I dip it. So what bracha do I say? Between the challah,
hamotzi.
So we learned this.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. But we read it inside. We read it in the Gemara. This was mentioned. We said if you dip your bread in the olive oil.
What about the garlic? The fresh garlic doesn't matter.
The same thing. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Secondary. Okay.
Secondary. Very good. So okay. So back to
Rabbi.
Yes, yes, Doug.
Yeah, sorry. I have a few bracha booklets. This was the very first one that was put out by Rabbi Eliezer Wenger, Moravich in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So he says coconut, and it says in parentheses, with or without its milk is ha'etz, and coconut milk alone is shahakol.
So what does that mean, with or without its milk?
In other words, if you're eating the coconut, whether you're consuming the